I just think everyone has their own experience with like coming back together for the holidays, and it's such a like a social media thing now too. Is like, you know, who's gonna bring up politics? Who's gonna bring up religion? Who's gonna bring up like it's that time of year where you get to see that creepy uncle or like all these jokes that they come up with on social media. And so everyone has some sort of connection to, it's not going to be the way that O'Connors do, the holidays or the way that we react to each other or things like that. But everyone has that experience with like,
It's
I'm
this
excited
person.
for the holidays, but we have this person's going to be there or this might come up. So
Yeah,
it's just
I'm
such a
glad you
real
said
thing.
that because
But
there was a tweet that I saw. It was a guy, of course, coming on Thanksgiving. It was a guy. It was a text thread between son and mom, and mom pretty much said, "All right, everyone's gonna be around for family. No stock talk." And he's like, "Why not? You guys all want to be broke?" This is the conversation. I wish I could pull it up right now. He's like, "Well, you guys all want to be broke?" It's like, "Well, no." This is mom now saying, "No." Sometimes it just gets
yeah.
really annoying to hear that. And all right, well,
Hmm.
I guess I won't be there this year. Is what he said to end the
Mm.
conversation. It's just so interesting to see, like,
Look, hell of an intro. I tell you what you in for, but I never really been the type of dude to give no info.
welcome to the Walking Girl Show, everyone. It's Roney and Courtney on the mic, and we have one of my highly anticipated episodes. I've been waiting for this for quite some time. Carly's looking at me like, "Why is this?" No, no, no. Carly, I've and the reason why I say highly anticipated because Carly, I'm just gonna. Courtney was not ready for this, so that's why she's cracking up. She's
Oh
probably,
no.
I've just probably got her nervous, but I've heard a lot, and she always talks about you, and I need to meet Carly because I hear a lot about her, and so I thank you for blessing us with your presence for today. Oh, come on.
Okay. I don't
But
say mean things.
I never said you do. See,
I know.
look
I
at
just
you.
wanted to preface. Her eyes are just. I just wanted to preface. That's all.
No, no, I've heard a lot, whether it be good, bad, ugly. I just heard it's a lot of the conversation is just like, yeah, my sister does. And I was, well, who is your sister? I mean, I gotta figure out who she is now because she brings you up a lot. And take it how you want. I mean, I'm not here to cause drama.
We're all good on that in that
But
regard.
again,
That's funny.
thank you for being here and allowing us to take some of your time away from what you have planned for today. And as we always like to kick everything off, how is everyone doing? We're coming off of the big old holidays. So how's everybody doing? Courtney, we'll kick it off with you first.
Okay. Yeah. I'm good. Um, our favorite word. Yeah. It's we're recording the day after Thanksgiving. It's probably episode's not going to come out for a while, but we're recording the day after
Yeah,
Thanksgiving, so we're here. I'm not usually in person with my sister, so that's why we
yeah.
took advantage of this opportunity. But we're both at my parents' house in Arizona, so yeah, family's all together. Ate lots of good food. Karley made most of the food, so I gotta give
Oh
her
yeah, Carly,
a
you're the
shout
chef.
out. But I made all
No.
the food. Yeah, she did most of the work there. My dad does like the turkey and some of the
Hmm.
heavy lifting, I guess, in that area. But yeah, everything was good, and all of our pets are here, and it's just a whole interesting family affair. So yeah,
Who
but
who's
good over here.
who's the cat lover?
Which one?
I don't know.
My
I'm just
mom is more of a cat lover than I am, I would say, but our mom's a wacko, but I also have a cat, and I was converted during the pandemic because I fostered
Yeah.
kittens.
Oh, nice.
And then my cat now is a disabled cat. He's got angular limb deformity, so
Okay.
his front legs are like this. And I had fostered him for like 5 months, and then I couldn't get him adopted out, so he's my little baby.
Nice. Nice.
I
And
just made a face because my parents had, I'd say recently, but how long have they had Mac? Like a year or
Yeah.
probably about a year.
Mac
So
Mac
Mac
being
is
the
the name
cat.
of the cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but Karley's
Mac the
had
cat.
her cat Johnny longer. That's why I would call her the cat lady
Yeah,
first
well,
because my mom was anti pets for a while.
Mm.
And then it's like as soon as now I can't call mom without come here, Mac. What are you doing, Mac? Oh, Mac is so cute. So it's those videos where like it's like the my dad with the dog that he said we couldn't get.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's how my mom was. It was like we don't need a cat. We don't need this. We don't
yeah.
need. And now she's like, oh, little Mac, and has all these names, and
It's
it's just
funny that
funny.
it's funny that you guys say that because I grew up with cats, and now for the most part, I have three other siblings. We're all pretty much out the house or leaving the house. And my
Mhm.
mom recently is like, "Yeah, I think it's time for me to get a pet again." I was like, "Wait, what in the world? I thought you just said you don't want anymore because no one helps you
Mhm.
with it, whatever the case may be." And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden, now everyone leaves. I guess it's your companion at that point, so it makes
Hmm.
sense. But it was just like it's funny how it all goes in circles.
You need something to care for or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a partner, a companion at the end of the day. But I don't want to jump over this. Karley, how are you doing? How's your heart? You know.
I am doing okay. I've been very tired the last couple days.
Mm,
And yeah, just kind of a lot of energy depletion from traveling and
I
She
bet.
drove from
being
Colorado.
around some people that
Oh wow.
that live different lifestyles than me, but otherwise, um, still doing everything that I need to do
Yeah.
to stay whole and happy that I have my cat with me.
Hmm. How long was that drive?
About 9 hours.
Okay, it's like a trip back from North Carolina, Connecticut. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
I understand the pain.
Hmm.
When are you doing it back? Like when are you?
Sunday.
Oof. Okay, so you have some time to rest, which is oh yeah. Power to you. I stopped traveling.
Thanks.
I stopped doing those road trips.
Yeah, yeah, it's on my mind about every time I do it.
Yeah.
Um, but my mom is a pusher, so
Hmm. She got you to do it. You didn't want to really do it.
yeah. Well, I think I say that every time, and then I just do it every time. But yeah, this time I'm like, next year I won't. But I haven't said anything yet, so she'll hear that on the podcast and get upset.
Uh
Oh my god.
oh. Oh goodness. But
This might. Yeah, we'll see. How are you, Ronnie? How's your heart today?
I'm I'm doing good. It was a good holiday, I would say, and the reason why we're talking about holidays because it's all gonna come together. But I'm doing good. It's good. I was very relaxed. I would say. I think it's probably one of the most relaxed holidays. I typically like Christmas and Thanksgiving. I'm sitting down. I'm chilling. Don't really get me to be active. So even today, I would say, just getting up to get ready to do this, I'm like, oh damn, I have to still record today. So this is one again, it's the moment in time where I actually typically like to relax and just kind of kick my feet up once in the blue, which is not
Hmm.
common. So this is right now. I'm really relaxed. I'm comfortable. I'm calm. I have a lot of energy still. So if I need to go take on the world, I still have the ability to do that. But we're not going to do it today. Not today.
Sorry, we made you do something.
No,
Get up
you're
off the
good.
couch
You're good.
today.
Yeah. I after this, I'll probably go right back on. So it's all right.
Yeah.
So you gotta relax sometimes, and I'm
Hmm.
learning that as I navigate life. It's just more like take that time for yourself to relax,
Hmm.
and be present with family or friends, whatever the case may be. And so
Hmm.
let's go dive right into the conversation for today because coming off the holidays, it could be tricky. All right, it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing for depending on your personal circumstances. And I myself, for those that don't know, I'm in North Carolina with zero family. In fact, the family that I lean on more is my girlfriend's family to kind of get that love and nurture that you may need or miss out on. My family's all still in Connecticut, so I don't go up there quite frequently. So if holidays around the family, it's like one of those things where it's like, do I look forward to it all the time? Not really, just because again,
Hmm.
most of my family is in Connecticut. Not to shame on my girlfriend's family, but it's of course it's a different type of love for the people that you grew up with.
Hmm.
But for myself, I will be taking a trip, so that we'll talk a little bit more about that, and as we go on in the conversation, because it's gonna get spicy. I will say I could see this Christmas being a very spicy one, just because of what's been going on while I've been gone, and my mother relays everything to me. So for any family
Mhm.
that's whatever's going on, just know I know everything. Trust me,
Mhm.
whether you know it or not, good, bad, ugly, all of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's family. Yeah, what can you do?
Yeah.
Gotta love them.
We've talked before about like leaving hometown and leaving,
Yeah.
not being there anymore, but that's definitely one thing I can agree with is mom, we know all the details. Details we do not need. About extended family we barely know. It's just like, oh, yeah, all right. Did you hear who's engaged? Did you hear who's having this baby? Did you hear this
Yeah.
person broke up? Did you?
Yeah.
These two people got in an argument, so we're not talking to them anymore. Oh my god.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness.
Yep.
You,
All right.
you just brought
Did
back
he?
a memory of my mom telling me that same exact thing. Yeah, this person gave me an issue, so I'm not
Mhm.
talking to them. I'm like, what happened?
Mhm.
Like, just a
Yeah.
week ago, you guys were just fine, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my
Definitely
goodness.
mom thing, I guess. But
I
yeah.
gotta ask you guys. So when you guys get together as a family, is it just your household, or is it other individuals like cousins? And
Mm.
how does that work?
So when we lived in New York, it would be
Ah,
a big family get together. But now that we're in Arizona, it's just our immediate family.
yeah.
Mhm.
And like we'll still try. Like last year for Christmas, we went to visit my grandpa.
Yeah.
Last year was my grandpa's 70th birthday,
Nice.
so we went to surprise him, and that was awesome. He lives near my mom's sister, so it's my mom's sister's family and my grandpa and grandma and us.
Mhm.
So that was great. We all spent time together. But back when we lived in New York, it was kind of like our whole matriarch. It was our
Mhm.
great grandma, and then my grandmother's sister, and kind of like all of our cousins. So we would get together and we have like 4th of July celebrations,
Mhm.
Easter celebrations, Christmas celebrations, not Easter,
No.
Christmas. Um, but yeah, so we used to do a lot of stuff, but now we've kind of all
Separate,
moved,
yeah.
and yeah, I think we all still like try to go back as much as possible. We went back for my cousin's high school graduation.
That's
But
the graduation, Courtney, that you went to, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you met the DJ.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So we're gonna have him as a guest. That's why I told him. And and well, and I was gonna say when we went back for my grandpa's 70th, that was New Year's, so that's when we met at the New Year's. So it all kind of, yeah.
Do you
Look
guys
at that.
is your house like typically the party house when it comes to like getting together, or do you guys go somewhere else? So
No.
I grew up at Liberty. My house was the party house, so everyone came to us. I mean, we all the shebangs. I mean, you name the holiday, it was probably at our house, and everyone was coming over, and we had to obviously cater to everyone. I enjoy that to a certain extent because a lot of the cleaning was on us, and
Yeah.
there was not much that we can really do on that part.
Yeah.
But of course, it was always great to not have to go anywhere, and you can have everybody come to you and just enjoy everyone's presence. But I mean, I tell you, the cleaning aspect of it, and
Well, I can only imagine
torturous.
like your social cup, where it's like it's getting late and you're like, okay, when do these people leave? Where when you're going to someone else's house, it's like we get to choose when we leave.
Yeah, yeah.
I could imagine that, but yeah, we've never really been. I mean, the only time we ever hosted was Karley's birthday. It was in the summer, so she got to have like barbecues outside, and
Yeah.
I think that's really the only thing we ever hosted. But it was always outside. Of course, mom would make us clean the entire house as if anybody was going in my room for
Right.
an outside party. But yeah, that's the only time we really hosted. But we would go like Thanksgiving meals would always be with Grandma and Papa, and we'd do like following Christmas morning, or not Christmas morning, but like that type of thing. We would do like a Christmas thing at my mom's aunts, and we were just kind of like on the outskirts of the town
Okay.
where other family were more in town, so it was kind of easier for people to gather, and they just have like a big house.
yeah,
So
we had
it
a
was
teeny
like,
tiny house.
yeah, they just had like a big fancy house, but we always thought it was fancy because that's where everyone got together, and a perfect spot for trick-or-treating, the perfect spot to meet for the parade in town, just different things like that with yeah, like it's funny, like, thinking back where it's like, 4th of July was my favorite holiday. It's like, well, no, it's just we really liked spending time at Aunt Lisa's house, and, like, Aunt Sue would bring over pizza at the end of the night, and they had a pool, and just all these different things that you think is, like, the coolest thing as a kid, and
Speaking
having
of
family
favorite
to do it.
holidays, Karley, we'll start with you. What is your favorite holiday?
Yeah, my favorite holiday used to be the 4th of July, but
Okay.
I don't think it was because I was at Aunt Lisa's. I always thought it was because it like represented the first like tastes of freedom that I got, and I don't mean freedom in terms of our country. I mean like because we would go into town, and it was the
Mhm.
first time that I would be able to just like be like, hey, I'm going to see Lauren, and then like go. There's a parade in the morning, and then the fireworks at night, and you're just like able to like hang loose all day.
I need to make
And
a connection. Sorry, Lauren has been brought up on the podcast before. The Lauren I'm thinking of.
it was actually a different Lauren, but I knew I
Oh,
could just say it without a last name. But anyway, yes, Lauren is Biko Scala's
fiance.
fiance.
Oh, really?
All these connections. I just
I'm
had to
like,
make this connection. I'm sorry. But yes, continue.
oh,
um,
shoot.
sure, but it was like the first day that like I remember being like 13 and being like, yeah, I can just hang out in town and
Yeah.
nobody
Mm.
cares.
That's that was part of like where we lived too, was like we were not really we had to drive to anything. And, obviously we
Damn,
can't
you
drive our
guys
whole
lived out
lives.
in the country essentially. Is that kind
It
of that's?
wasn't
Hey,
it
hey,
wasn't
Karley,
too
I'm just trying to
far.
figure it out. Don't come attacking me now. She gave me that look
Well,
like, what the hell you just say to me?
We're country girls. Yeah.
well, that was one of my suggestions was like I can talk about life in a small town, but I also really don't want to talk about that because I know Courtney like thinks my life is so crazy, and I'm just like it's not that crazy. But like we all called Saugerties a small town because it's small relative to the city.
Mhm.
Saugerties is a town of 25,000 people. It's not
Yeah.
that
Oh,
small. But then we lived 13 minutes outside of town, so that is kind of outside of town.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't think of it as like not populated. We lived on a highway. So we can't walk anywhere. We can't, like, our
yeah,
backyard was the New York State Thruway, and our front yard was a highway across from a fire
gotcha.
department. So it was just like there's nothing. We don't play with kids in the neighborhood. It was nothing like that. It was just more so. So for the 4th of July, we would, like I said, go to Aunt Lisa's house. We had cousins that, like, my cousin is my age. He was born a month after me, so I
Hmm.
always had him there. And then there was always baseball games in walking distance. Our friends would be at the field in walking distance, things like that. So that's kind of like that freedom that she mentioned, and all of our friends would be at the parade, so we could just say, like, I
We're
my
going
friend
there.
is over there, or their family is always over there, and we just tell our parents, and we were allowed to go, which rarely happened. So it
Yeah.
was definitely that bit of freedom. But
Karley, you mentioned 4th of July was your favorite. So what is? Or do we not have
I don't
one?
know. Yeah, I don't know. I like Halloween.
Okay.
Um, there was a good party this year for Halloween. I think I still like the 4th of July because in Paonia, where I live, they do. We like don't celebrate it patriotically. We celebrate the harvest of cherries. It's
Yeah.
called Cherry Days. So that's just the way it times out is that cherries are harvesting during Independence Day. So like nobody dresses patriotically, whereas like in New York, everyone's like bulling
Really?
on like their Old Navy attire.
mm-hmm.
Whereas like in Paonia, everyone's like either just wearing normal clothes or dressed in like cherry attire. so so I really like it. Yeah, I've been in the
Cherry.
parade typically, but like the parade in Paonia is like 3 minutes long, so it's nice. It's
Mm.
very chill.
Hey, how about yourself, Courtney? What's yours?
I'd probably just have to say Christmas. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I appreciate gathering with family. I know we're going to get more into that conversation, but I do appreciate spending the time together. And just, I mean, I think we've touched on love languages before. I just really like gift giving, and, um, just seeing, especially if I have a good idea, or I would say we're both really crafty. So especially if we make something that people enjoy or that people are able to use. So I like that. Um, yeah, I'm not a
So
Halloween
just
person.
Christmas?
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty typical, but
for myself, I'd have to agree with what Carly said. Wes, I don't know. She's kind of on the fence with this one. I don't know. Fourth of
mhm,
July and mine is New Year's.
mhm. I was gonna
Celebration
say
is
same
kind of
too.
yeah. Celebration is where I enjoy the most. Is when gathering people, getting people together, and celebrating accomplishments or just celebrating something.
Mhm.
That's it. The gift giving. I'm not. I'm a guy. So I don't know. I'll use this stereotype, right? Guys are bad givers, gifters, and I'm okay with it. But I would say for myself, it's New Year's and Fourth of July.
Mhm. I think it's gonna depend. Here I go. I think it's gonna depend on like the year too, because like this type of thing, I'm really excited for New Year just because of like what it symbolizes for me this year. Where like other years, I probably am like, it's not that big of a deal. Last year I was excited because I was somewhere new, and I'm not usually somewhere new, so it kind of depends. But and just like I mean, my first year over in I think I went back for Christmas every year, but my first year that my parents were over here, we knew we wouldn't have a bigger family gathering for Christmas, so that felt a
Yeah.
little bit different. So I think it kind of feels a little bit different each time. Um, but yeah, kind of depends.
Yeah, that's one thing my family does really well for Christmas. That's the one holiday where I probably missed out more than anybody, ever since moving. But that's one holiday
Hmm.
where we all get together. Not everybody, because it's more immediate, and as well as my aunt
Hmm.
and I, who I pretty much grew up with, where we all like just get together. That's one holiday I can actually say I could commend my family for staying to their principles of
Hmm.
just all right. This is the
Hmm.
one holiday we're always gonna get together, and as we all start to separate, it's become more and more difficult. Where it's now we're trying to
Yeah.
figure out, all right, who's going to be there this year, who's not. And
Hmm.
I'm going to be there. I have a cousin who isn't going to be there, who we're typically there. So it's always that dynamic of
Yeah.
where we're
Yeah.
kind of like fussing and fighting with. But let's
Yeah.
talk about getting together with family. Sometimes it could be, a good thing. I know myself. I said it's going to be interesting because there is a dynamic going on within the family right now where there's a lot changing and a lot of people are getting taken advantage of. But how do you guys in difficult and I'm gonna kind of take this for myself, right? Because I'm gonna apply depending on
Really
what you
fun.
guys say, of course. How do you guys have those difficult conversations with family during the holidays, just to not cause?
I know my answer, but I wanted to see what Karley was gonna say first.
How do we have difficult conversations with the family? I'll say like right now, I'm having an experience, and I'm feeling like I need to like process it,
Mm,
like just let it be the
Hmm.
experience that it's being, and then bring it up maybe next time, bring it up when it's past or
Hmm.
something like that. And it sucks because it's like this is just the experience that it's being, but I just feel like I'm like too heated right now, or like we're both just in this right now.
Hmm.
So it's not the
right,
time
right.
Hmm.
for that. So it's really hard to be in like a bubble with people and not be able to kind of solve the issues that you're
Hmm.
having. Like it's like,
I
oh, we're
agree.
butting heads or something, and I feel like I'm trying my best, and I don't know if like the other party is trying their best, but I'm just like, okay, I'm not ready to communicate
Yeah.
whatever I want to communicate, and of course I don't even have the words for what I want to
Hmm.
communicate, which tells me that I'm not ready to
Yeah.
communicate that. So I'm just like, yeah, this is gonna have to like I'm gonna have to go home and figure out like how I'm actually feeling about this, and then bring it up at Christmas or
Mm-hmm.
bring it up later
Hmm.
on FaceTime.
No.
Yeah. That's
Interesting, because
that's what I was gonna say.
I
Yeah.
I would, for myself at least, I like to deal with issues head on, right? So Carly, you're saying maybe not the right time. Where if I see it's not the right time, I can care less. That's my problem.
Hmm.
That's my thing. It's like, oh
Hmm.
brother, like you're gonna deal with this, and of course some things can be said, right? That doesn't need to be said, which is why I think just having everyone, and we're not having to say just to kind of give everybody what's going on in our personal life. It's more, let's just give everyone a perspective of like, yes, there's maybe times where you're going to experience something in life where you're going to have tough conversations with the people that you love, and you don't want to upset them, you don't want to trigger anything to keep that relationship. So you got to be respectful of everyone, and that's why I'm just kind of seeing like, all right, Karley's like, yeah, I'm just going to
Mhm.
process this, whereas me, I'm like, all right, yeah, you're here in front of me, let's talk about this, let's do this now. And that's just
I think
go ahead.
I think it kind of depends on like how large or how small it is. Like
Okay, that's fair.
I there were two things that I like had a minor confrontation about, and I've had two like mini blowups that I didn't like. Like just Courtney heard me yesterday, like my mom was like, "Karley, are you ready to go?" And I'm
Oh.
like, "I'm changing." Because she just like she had already asked me once and I was like, "I'm changing." And I'm just like, "Stop rushing me."
Mm.
So
Mom's gonna hear
I'm just
this.
I know.
Well, it's funny that she said that because I didn't. When she said I had two blowups, I was like, I don't. Was I there for that? Because I haven't witnessed a blow up. Um, so just kind of different levels. Which I mean, she's processing her own things internally,
Yeah.
so it's like she mentioned, where the way we see things is going to be different. But I think it's. I was just going to bring up. It's generally speaking, like you mentioned, why we have this conversation, and then we can go back into
Yeah.
it. Is I just think everyone has their own experience with like coming back together for the holidays, and it's such a like a social media thing now too, is like, you know, who's gonna bring up politics, who's gonna bring up religion, who's gonna bring up like, it's that time of year where you get to see that creepy uncle, or like all these jokes that they come up with on social media. And so everyone has some sort of connection to, it's not going to be the way that O'Connors do, the holidays, or the way that we react to each other or things like that, but everyone has that experience with like,
It's
I'm
this person.
excited for the holidays, but we have this person's gonna be there, or this might come up. So
Yeah,
it's just
I'm
such a
glad you
real
said
thing.
that because
But
there was a tweet that I saw. It was a guy, of course, coming on Thanksgiving. It was a guy. It was a text thread between son and mom, and mom pretty much said, "All right, everyone's gonna be around for family. No stock talk." And he's like, "Why not? You guys all want to be broke?" This is the conversation. I wish I could pull it up right now. He's like, "Well, you guys all want to be broke?" It's like, "Well, no." This is mom now saying, "No." Sometimes it just gets
yeah,
really annoying to hear that. And all right, well,
hmm
I guess I won't be there this year, is what he said to end the
mm,
conversation. It's just so interesting to see, like, I mean, just like what you mentioned, you got that one person that
yeah,
always talks about this one thing, and it's just like, yeah, give it a
hmm
break kind of thing. No one wants to
yeah.
really hear it. And it just made me think about that tweet. And I wish I could find it to pull it up for you guys who are on YouTube. I'll try to do my
Well,
best.
yeah. I was just gonna say, Car and I think we have better conversations as we get older about us individually and how we've grown and what we've learned and all these different things. And I think I'm gonna say that sometimes our parents take offense to like us growing not away from them or anything like that. It's just like we're learning different things.
Yeah.
So we have this new knowledge that they don't have, and they just didn't have the experiences that we had. And like it's not like we're not trying to be rude to you. We're not saying like how dare you not teach us. Like we didn't expect you to, just different things like that. So I'm learning, and this is a perfect example, like the conversations that we have and the people that I get to meet and talk to. Like I want to talk about those things, or my clients at work, like their resilience, or the families that good or bad, right, that I interact with, or rugby, or all these different experiences that we have. She has very, very different experiences, but still exciting to her. And in her own area, we both like built our own lives in very different spaces. And then we come home and it's kind of like, okay, what can we talk to dad about? Because dad has his own,
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean? It's
right.
not like, it's nothing bad. It's not like, oh, dad's not interested in anything I do. It's not that. It's just he has his own, like, he loves football.
Yeah.
He is really, really into his work. Like, you know what I mean? He loves whatever he just recently built in the backyard, is what he wants to talk about. So, and my mom has her own interests.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, we were talking about bringing the larger family stuff into the conversation. And so it's just kind of like, where do I put,
Your piece
like,
into it,
do
yeah.
I put my stuff, or do I like, hey, how's like football.
But
It's like, how does that start? But it's a real thing, and I think people are like you can't sit down and be like, we have nothing in common, because that's offensive, or people just take it as like, oh, you're not like close to your family anymore. And it's like, no, we're just, now we have
different.
4 adults coming together in a house. So it's different. It looks different,
Yeah.
and it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's perspectives. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's a tough thing, I think, to navigate. Is when I think it's just to your answer though, to like, hey, how do you work through it? Just, I guess, you may not be sports lovers, but I just want to use this as an example. You may not be sports lovers, but it's like, how's your team doing? All right, and
Mm-hmm.
at that point, just let them talk, or just let whoever talk.
Well, yeah, it would be, that's the rest of the night.
Yeah, I asked him that yesterday, and he said good, and I was like, oh, shoot, what do I do now?
Yeah. Well, we sat down and watched the game, and
they kicked butt yesterday too. So
yeah, they did good. Yeah. But yeah, it's just finding that common ground, and
it's tough. It is tough. It is. I will say I try as much as I could say. Probably yesterday I was having this kind of conversation as well, which is just like, I'm not interested in what you have to say, but I will keep the conversation going, and you just dive deeper into how I do it. Is I would take something, and maybe you guys can help take away from it, but whatever someone else says, I'll take one piece that they said and just get them to elaborate on that. Right. So I'm constantly getting them to just talk about something new that I take from a sentence or something, and just, all right, tell me about that. Okay, tell me about this. It's not because I'm not interested. It's just I'm now just giving myself that knowledge, right? I'm learning through your experience about certain things that I took away from it. I was like, how was that? What'd you do here? Okay, how did that turn out?
Yeah.
Oh, really? That's what happened? Cool. Tell me more. So I'll just keep going until there's nothing to talk about. And it's all right, bye.
I think that's kind of the benefit of like a larger family gathering too.
Yeah.
Where with us and 4 people, and that's another thing is like, people would be like, well, aren't you like, isn't it sad being so far from home? And I'm like, I FaceTimed my mom 4 times this week.
Wow, that's good.
Like, yes, it'd be nice to, no, just that's how I was when I moved to Arizona, and we still do. Like, I'll leave work, and that was last Saturday, it was like 11, and I kept looking at my phone, and I'm like, I haven't heard from my mom yet. Just like, just different things like that, where you're just so used to communicating. But even when I moved over, of course it's nice to see people in person, but just the type of communication that we have with my mom, we're never out of the loop. So when we get together, it's like, like there's not so much. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a negative thing. It's just one of those, like, we're all here now.
Yeah, you're in each other.
What do we do?
You're in each other's presence at the same point. But Karley, you're 9 hours away from home. So how is that for you? Like, in terms of just that, I guess not so much of the communication aspect of it, but just staying involved, right? Because again, my siblings and I, we're terrible when it comes to communication with each other. I communicate with my mom primarily, and that's kind of how we relay messages to each other, which is extremely weird, right? We all have cell phones, so it's just like, why don't you just pick up the phone and see how they're doing? But it's one of those things where my sisters are actually twins, right? So this is the dynamic that we grew up in. Sisters are twins, so they're really close, and I have an older brother who's about 5 years apart. So it's like, all right, where do you guys really have an interest, right? You got 2 sisters who are, again, girls. They're 4 years younger. Me being directly in the middle, older brother. It's like, how do you guys all really like talk to each other at this point? Especially you're all grown, you all have different interests. But I want to kind of go back to what the question with Karley is, being so far apart. How do you still keep that communication really strong? I guess I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. I have a question for you after I answer this. But
a question for me.
No, me and my mom also FaceTime all the time.
Gotcha.
I think sometimes it ebbs and flows, but I FaceTime my mom all the time. And sometimes there's just like radio silence, but we're just like bored and FaceTiming, but it's just like, we keep up communication. And I always say that our long distance relationship is like better than our in-person relationship. And I think it's like, it makes sense. It's because we're allowed to like establish our boundaries and be like,
that's true.
Okay, well, that was enough talking to you for the hour. I think that we're like a family of pretty introverted people. would you say you're an introvert? Um, but like, yeah, when we're in person, some of us don't handle that well. We're like wanting to cram in that time together,
Yeah.
and then like getting frustrated or like not realizing that we need that space, which is another reason that I love Johnny because my cat like stays hiding in the room, and I'm like, oh, I better go hang out with Johnny. So then I go hide in the room. Um, but to like go back to the question, no, we keep in touch pretty well, and
That's
then
good.
Mom wishes that I would come visit more, but it's like not feasible. I'm busy.
Yeah.
So
Your question.
And I think,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say I don't know what how you'd talk about our communication, because we're very like direct. Like if we communicate, it's because there's something to say.
Yeah.
You know, we
Same.
don't do a lot of like, hey, how's, and again, I don't think there's a negative. I think when we communicate, it's good communication, and like, it's funny because I think Karley, I either feel the most heard and the most understood by Karley, or the least heard and the least understood. Like there's no in between, and it's just, I think that's a sister thing, and I think it depends on the context. But there are some times where it's like she's the only one that I want to text, but it's such a, we have such a text, and the only, we FaceTime if it's a three-way FaceTime with Mom. Like Mom will like call us both in, and we'll have those check-ins. But I think our text conversations is just kind of interesting. Like you were talking about when we text or when we don't text. It's and of course now with the holidays, it's like, what are you getting, Mom? Like what are you, you know, like very direct and things like that. But it's either that or it's so brief, or it's like these deep conversations that I don't know who else to go to. So it's just super interesting, that dynamic.
I don't have deep conversations with my siblings. Not enough, I would say, to be honest. But Karley, you mentioned you had a question.
Yeah, you had a question.
Shoot a fire away.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to ask. So you said that you have big gatherings with your families around the holidays. Is that like centered around a matriarch?
Is there a, yeah?
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Does that make sense?
Kind of. Can you elaborate? Like, what do you mean?
Like, is there a grandmother who's hosting those?
Oh no, it's my mother and my aunt. There isn't, now it's less and less of them and more of us, which I think is part of the reason why it's not the same way that it used to be. Because again, us growing up with that, it's still, we have to put it together, and we're all doing different separate things, right? All of us, but it's more or less, I would say, the big gatherings now don't happen as often. So like the 4th of July, I mean, all the cookouts, I mean, during the summer our house was the party house. That's because it was my mother and my aunts putting it all together. It doesn't happen as frequently. I would say Christmas is probably the biggest that it gets, but again, it's still immediate family, but it's still a large family. So that is still, again, my mother, my aunt. Will those stay together? Man, when that time passed, I honestly don't really know, because they're right now the glue, I will say, and what keeps us all together. So it's more or less, that's actually a really good question, because it's something that I think we all should really discuss and start trying to figure out, like, hey, let's start putting the responsibility on us to keep us all together. Whether it be, we're having the 4th of July gathering now, right? And we putting it all together and allowing them to sit back and enjoy the moment. It's like, oh, this is what we used to do. But it's more or less my mother and my aunt, they're in the same household, essentially. So it's easy for us to put stuff together. It doesn't take much of a work or effort. We're all there. This is when we're all going to Connecticut, we're all going to essentially one house. And so it's really easy to put those things together. I hope does that answer your question, Karley?
Yeah. I'm just thinking a brief history lesson. Not even like 3 generations ago, families were all kind of living in the same household. Like 3 generations worth were living in the same household. So it made sense to have all of your gatherings in one house.
Yeah.
And like even bring other people together. So before our great grandmother passed away, we were having like massive like cousins
and it's
type of,
I think it's the
gatherings.
type of, like, the society that we live in now. Not to say it's we're the problem kind of thing. But I think social media being in place, we're more connected to our
Mhm.
family. So it's like, do we feel more inclined to go get connected? It's like, well, I already know what's been going on for the past 365 days a year. You post it all on social media for God's sake. So
Yeah.
it's like, I guess I want to say that's kind of I think the reason why it doesn't happen. Now, I can't speak for everybody, but I can only speak for my family. It doesn't happen as often. It's because of that part of the reason. But I think it's just a matter of us as the younger generation to make sure that we're keeping that going and keeping it alive and just put in the work in. I don't think any of us want to actually put the work in, and I think that's the the root of the problem, to be honest.
I think there's something like I say all the time, come to my house. I have more house than I need for just me. It's like, yeah, anytime you want to come to Arizona, feel free. I would host this, I'd host that, but who's going to come to Arizona right now? And how can you get there and with the prices of things, right? So it kind of just comes down to like where is everybody now? I don't I would also say if we're talking historically, I think there was probably less of like we can go wherever we want to go.
Yeah, three
Right.
generations ago, everyone lived like
Same.
You just
your whole
stayed.
family lived in the same town.
Yeah.
Your whole family did not own a house that cost $300,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you
Just
guys
in terms of like the abilities and the opportunities for growth now.
would you say it's part of planning though? Like, would you guys say like if we just a year ahead, hey guys, this is where we're going to be for this holiday? You think that would work, or you still think that's kind of like overstretching it?
No, I think if it was something that everyone was interested in doing, we could absolutely plan.
That's fair.
I mean, we've brought up like we're talking about matriarch and we talk about going to Aunt Lisa's a couple times just because that's where a lot of the holidays were. I think if Aunt Lisa posted or sent a message to everybody and said I'd really like people to come home this year for this day, we would probably try to do it. Just like we mentioned for our cousin's graduation, it was just something like
True.
he's the oldest cousin of that group, and he has a bunch of younger siblings. So even just his family alone, we were like, he's the first person to graduate of
Oh,
that
nice.
age group, I guess. So we really wanted to just be there for him. So it was something like, this is happening, we're all going. So yeah, I definitely think having it planned does help. Yeah, it just comes down to what are not what we're interested or not interested in. It's just more so I'm not traveling if it's not going to be like, is this person going to be there? Is this cousin going to be there? Is this like I really would like it to be a family thing rather than we travel one time for
Wait, you're saying that you
this
wouldn't
and then
go if a particular family member would be there?
no, not like a particular I just mean
No,
like
wasn't gonna be there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like,
Gotcha.
she wants them all to be
where
there.
for the graduation we knew we would see my grandparents. So my grandparents are in North Carolina right now, but they were going to be in New York at the same time. Like these cousins are going to be in New York at the same time.
Yeah.
This side of the family is going to be in New York. So it's just like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity for me to spend money, go over there, and it's not all about finances, but take time off, spend money, get over there and get to see everybody that we really would want to see and check in with. That's all. Is just making sure because when at this time, the way the world is right now, spending money to go to New York, it's like and it's not a who's gonna be there or it's not worth it, but it's like I would like to check everyone off the list,
Yeah.
and I'd love to visit my grandparents. So do I go to North Carolina or do I go to New York or do I wait and is there a time where everyone's gonna be in the same spot? Just things like that
Do you guys
to try to coordinate.
do you guys specifically, and we don't, do you guys have family reunions by any chance at all? Yeah, see, we don't do that either.
My boyfriend's family had one last year, and I was like, this is a relic of the past.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. It was so cool.
Yeah.
I think our last one happened might be approaching 8 years ago. Maybe. It's been a while.
I feel like there are pictures of us as kids at
Mhm.
family
Yeah,
reunions.
same here.
But
Same
There's a
here.
picture of me in a pie eating contest.
Yeah, like there was like food eating contest. That's all I
Yeah.
can
And
I remember.
But
But we were kids.
yeah, same
like,
here.
young.
Yeah, we had more family reunions when I was kids than I can ever remember as being an older individual. Which,
Yeah.
again, I think it goes back to us just
Who was putting those
who's
on?
putting it together.
Like, who?
Not me.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. But I don't know. There is so much, like I mentioned, and kind of going back to that social media piece, I feel like there is so much of like a negative connotation of like, here it comes. And even I had a conversation. One of my friends is a teacher, and she was like, "What is work like around the holidays?" Kind of just like asked me very lightheartedly, and I was like, "Yeah, there's like extra hospitalizations. Like there's a lot of like self harm going on, and not to make it super deep, but I do extra work on the weekends for hospitalizations, like specifically." And I got a text from my boss for that program, and she was like, "We need like kind of all hands on deck this weekend, a holiday weekend." So even just to think about it from that
Wow.
level is like, what is that stress? Where is that stress coming from? And is it very well could be that people don't have the family
Or it
that
could be
they
the
used
family.
to, or there could be loss, or it could be like
It's
that,
the family.
we're going to be together with the family. And Karley mentioned boundaries before, and that's one thing I wanted to bring up is I think there's this new, like, I think kids and teens are getting a little bit more autonomy, and I think older generations think that's disrespectful and I think maybe Ronnie thinks that's disrespectful, and we might be on different sides here, but I think kids like being able, so here's what I was going to say is on social media, it's a lot of like when this person brings up, so let's just say politics. What are you going to say when politics comes up at the table? And it's like just the ability to say, I'm not interested in this
or
conversation.
don't say anything. Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah, just like that's a boundary that you're allowed to set. And I think for so long, and we definitely grew up in the generation of go give that person a hug, go give that person a kiss, we're not leaving until you go say goodbye to this person.
Yeah, yeah,
And it was a
yeah.
lot of like you don't get the choice to like determine if this is a healthy or safe or person that you just feel close to. And I understand that up to a point, but I'm seeing, especially like with my clients and just socially and whatever, that there are more teens, more kids, even just people our age having more autonomy to make those decisions and say, I don't have to have those conversations. I had a conversation like this with my dad one time, who's in his 50s, and about, well, if I go home, then I have to answer all these questions. I'm like, no, you don't. Just say, I don't want to talk about it. And he's like, well, that's rude. I'm like, but no, it's not, because you don't want to talk about it. What's rude is if they pressure you to then keep talking about it. So just being able to, I think people just have this expectation of like, if I go to this house, I'm gonna have to talk about this. Or that it comes up where it's like everyone's gonna ask why I'm still single, which has never been a thing in our house and has never been a thing in our family. But like, if people are asking you, like, you don't have to answer those
Yeah.
questions, right? There's an appropriate way and a kind way to say, I'm sorry, Grandma. Do we have to talk about that right now? Like there's a way you can speak and a tone that you can use to be like, nah, not really what I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that gets talked about so much.
I don't think so. I laugh, and I agree with you that yes, nowadays the kids are a little bit more. They're bold in my eyes, and I say this because this morning, I kid you not, I was just on Instagram, and again, I gotta reference this clip because it was literally tied into what you said. So there's a uncle, I believe he was gracing the food. He was praying over the food.
Mm-hmm.
There was three kids. Two of them were like giggling under their mouth as uncle
Mm-hmm.
is praying, and then one kid just loudly just started laughing loud. And I don't know if it was grandma, I don't know who the person was, but grandma had their belt in her hand and started beating her. I was just like, holy crap. This is no way that this is happening right now. And someone actually
Well,
captured this. And I don't know if it was real, fake, or whatever the case, but I can honestly see that being a real thing in a lot of people's households where you have someone praying over the food and then you have three kids that just don't understand. That's all it is. It's just a lack of understanding and laughing. I mean, man, if I were to ever laugh, I probably would never see the next day, especially in those moments. But it just made me
yeah.
really laugh just because, again, it's that aspect of, yeah, these kids are bold nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to you guys. I wouldn't. There's just, I guess, a level of respect at the end of the day at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
I mean, we've gone through different transitions, yeah, like that, where it was like, growing up, it was like you eat everything that is put on your plate at Papa's house. You don't leave food on the plate. You don't well, Papa's rules. There was when we both pierced our noses, we had to like take it out when we went.
Really?
He didn't talk to me for a minute when I first pierced my nose, and then I think he might have had a conversation with my mom, and I think he was like, I don't want to do that to your kid, or like,
like a transition period where it's like
yeah.
at first it's disrespectful, so what can we do to adjust, because we do absolutely respect our grandfather.
Yeah.
It's just like we respect our grandfather but we still make our own choices.
Yeah,
so where's
like,
the middle ground? And then like he started kind of compromising, and then it was really like this transition that we kind of saw. But
I want to make that connection to autonomy, because you mentioned like hugging, having the choice to hug someone or not having the choice to hug someone, and you mentioned eating all the food on your plate. And I think hospitalizations and Thanksgiving especially is a terrible holiday for people who have eating disorders or food issues. And it is just like so commonplace for people to be like, oh, I ate too much. Like, I cannot count on two hands the amount of times that I heard that yesterday within our own family, or that I have heard that at work preparing to have that. And that's just like, personally, something that I try to keep out of my vocabulary and am surrounded by. So I think that's something that people struggle with
Absolutely.
around this holiday. Is just people being like, wow, yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, okay, just fix your relationship with food, dude.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's,
I could have worded that better, but those are my feelings on the matter.
a lot of, I would say, yeah. I mean, not to get too deep into that conversation specifically, because I can't relate. It's just like you mentioned, if I know that I don't want to eat much, then I won't eat much. I know even in my younger days where I would go to multiple people's houses to celebrate Thanksgiving, but not at every house I was eating a whole plate. There's just no. I saved my plate for the meal that I know that I need, which is the one my mom and my aunt were chefing up. That was the real one for me, and I think it's just, again, acknowledging it. That's it. Once you realize, like, all right, every Thanksgiving you're eating too much, it's like, well, do I have to eat this much?
Yeah.
Well, and just your own thoughts on it. So if I know I eat a bunch on Thanksgiving, and I know how I feel about food, I know how I feel about when I eat too much, but it's like, am I going to be upset with myself, or am I going to give myself Thanksgiving and not worry about it? And then like so I saw a post that was like one like serving of turkey, and it was supposed to be like, do you do this much exercise? But the whole point of the post was like, you do not need to exercise because you ate food.
Right.
So it just canceled the whole thing out. So it was just about like, I went to the gym the day before Thanksgiving, not because I'm going to be mad at myself because I had Thanksgiving dinner, but just because I want to have that balance. Like, I want to make sure I'm consistently still going. So it's all about how you talk to yourself, and it's all about just how you think about it within yourself. So it's not so much like, I knew I was full, and I probably said that over and over again, like, I ate too much food, but not because I was mad at myself, or not because I'm now going to punish myself or anything like that. We went for a walk yesterday, and I was glad we went for a walk.
Nice. That's
not because I ate too much, but just because I was glad we were moving. So just different things like that. But yeah, everyone sees
perspectives.
Things differently.
It's perspectives.
And,
and I think that's the beautiful part with just having conversations with people. It's not just to get anything to benefit yourself out of it. It's just hear somebody out sometimes. Again, we could sit on here. All three of us, I think, have entirely different perspectives on life, just in general, right? But it's being able to sit down and still having a respectable and acknowledgeable and knowledge. Just give yourself a little bit of more insight of how we see things, so that therefore I can see, okay, I can see your things. Maybe I won't agree with it. Maybe I will. Who knows? Who cares? Just at least have respect enough to have those conversations, to be able to then move forward from that. And I think that's the piece where that's what really stops. I think personally, human growth. It's your way or the highway, and I think that's where we can kind of get in a situation where it's like, if you want to be stubborn for a moment, that's fine. But again, I think it's still important to just hear someone out, because you don't know what you're gonna get out of it. And I don't want this to be like a Dr. Phil talk or a pep talk or anything of that nature, because that's not what I'm here to do. It's just
Yeah.
shed a little bit of light of what I think isn't really happening. And of course, this is a conversation with myself at the same time.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and I know I've brought this up a bunch of times, but I just feel like the way media portrays it is either like it's the most wonderful time of the year, or it's like, oh, we all have to do this now, right? There's like no in between of like some people have positive experiences and some people have middle ground experiences and some people have negative experiences, and it's okay to have those conversations. And like I said, I think family dynamics is such a topic where it's like, oh, that's gonna hurt someone's feelings. And coming into this, we were both kind of like, we know how our family reacts to things. We know who in our family is watching this. We just different things like that. Like, how do we say it? But just understanding, like, you can have conversations about your family. You can have conversations about your upbringing. You can have
Yeah.
conversations about how we are now as individuals, and it's not offensive. It's not because of someone or in spite of someone. And that's one thing I was going to add when you mentioned perspective. Like, of course, we grew up differently, but if it's what's very funny and what I've learned and learned so much from is understanding how Karley and I have grown up differently, which is so funny to say. Like,
That's
we grew
very
up in the
interesting.
same house with the same parents,
Right.
with the same dog our whole lives, and like in the same high school, we had a lot of the same teachers and had such a different experience in our upbringing. And I'm very, very grateful to understand that now because we've had those conversations,
Mm.
and she has taught me a lot about that. Because just in terms of, and this is something we don't have to get into it, but it's something I've been really interested in, is just birth order, the difference between a firstborn or the oldest in the family's experience
Yeah.
versus a middle child versus a youngest,
Hmm.
and just how different your experience can be just with that alone versus experiences that you had with friends, experiences that you had in your hometown versus not in your, you know what I mean, just different things like that. And just super, super interesting. So it's like, of course I can talk to you and we have different experiences, but I have my sister who, like, no one else grew up even remotely as close, but still such different experiences and such different ways that we communicate our
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah.
And I don't think families talk about that either, where it's kind of like, how, oh, and we've dealt with that our whole lives. Courtney and Karley are so different. Courtney and
No,
Karley.
well, mom says that we're so similar, and I'm like, no, we're not. And it's because my mom is like, you guys have the same values, and I'm like, no, like when you really get into the nitty gritty of them, like, like, but I think, oh, I lost my train of thought. You mentioned earlier,
Growing up in the same house, we're very different. People were saying,
yeah,
Courtney
whatever.
and Karley are so different.
I'm gonna okay. The
Pivot.
book that I'm reading, talks about how there are internalizers and there are externalizers.
Okay.
So, yeah, two kids can respond to something that happens in just the completely different way. So, oh, you mentioned earlier that like sometimes you can feel totally heard by me and sometimes you can feel totally like not heard by me. And I think the times that you're feeling not heard by me is because I'm just like, why aren't you reacting the way that I would react?
Yeah.
And it's because like I haven't gotten to that chapter yet, but so I don't know which one I am. I think I'm an externalizer and you're an internalizer. And literally, it's like a 30-minute audiobook, and I wanted to read it before this, but I need a long time.
That brings
that.
Go ahead.
But yeah, it's just like I'm like I would do this so much differently.
Right.
Like, what's your issue?
Yeah. No, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that you guys said that, because now that makes me think, right? How I was going to address Christmas, my conversation makes me now think back like, all right, this is how I would deal with it, but how are they looking at the situation, right? Do they even see it from my hindsight, or, you know? And now it makes me really wonder, like, all right, maybe I will take what Karley said and take a step back to process it, to make sure that I can understand it from their perspective, because I think that's the biggest piece that I'm forgetting at the moment, which, again, if you don't see it my way, it's like, why don't you see it my way? What the heck? It's very obvious. What don't you see? But it may be something that is missing that could really tie it all together. So I definitely want to say thank you for literally bringing that to my hindsight, both of you guys, because that now allows me to say, all right, we can still have the conversation, but of course, like I mentioned, respectable and not attacking, but more or less a conversation that can progressively, hopefully, make some sort of progress in the end. So
Well, I think
this is
when
what
you
we
like,
do here. We're not all perfect. Like, come on.
No,
yeah,
I definitely like always use the word pusher to describe like myself
Yeah,
and my
same here.
mother, and I think it's like a lack of processing. Like I think it's
Mhm.
just like, why aren't you doing this?
Yeah,
And
Right.
it's just like step
yeah.
back, figure it out, and you can talk about it later.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, I think like if I were to approach a conversation with you, Ronnie, I know I have an expectation that we have different perspectives, right? So it's kind of like I don't know what's gonna happen, but that's okay. I know we can have the conversation.
Yeah.
Or when you approach a conversation with family, it's
Oh
like
yeah.
we're the same. What do you mean? Like we should think the same
Oh
way.
my god.
You should care about what I care about. You should like I'm talking
Oh my
about me, so
gosh.
you should be excited to hear this. Or like whatever notions that you show up with, it's
Yeah.
like and I mess with my mom all the time where
That's
it's
so
like
true.
I'll call her and she won't answer and I'm like, I'm your firstborn. Like what are you doing? That's not talking to me. And I'm of course I'm kidding. Like I know she has a life and things like that, but just different things where it's like, why don't you want to hear me? Like I'm doing exciting things. People don't want to hear my exciting things. It's just I would never approach a friend or someone outside of my
With
immediate
family.
family with the same thoughts. So it's kind of just the same thing of being able to say, no, these are grown adults now.
Mm.
Or like people whose lives went a certain way and they're learning different things just as I'm learning different things. And the way that they hear the message presented is different, maybe different than my intention that I had when I presented the message and
Yeah.
things like that. So
Family dynamics, the person in our head, the
mhm,
communication level. It's just so much. There's so many variables that go into just
mhm,
having fluidity in our lives, and
mhm,
however anybody decides to allow that to flow. You just got to
yeah,
find what works for you ultimately. And I always will
mhm,
say I'm always going to seek out for knowledge and always going to have conversations and always seek for perspectives, of course, which is why having those conversations that I typically have, and I'll dive deep into it just to hear, all right, what made you do this? What made you do that? What are you stupid? I won't say
mhm.
that to somebody, but it's like in my head, I'm like, what are you stupid for doing that? But
Yeah.
it's just it's just getting an understanding overall. And the more I think, the more that we can take in, of course, take in what you want, but don't overload yourself, then you're going to
Mhm,
be able to have more to work with. Because again, everybody
mhm.
has something to share.
Well, I think also, like you mentioned, don't overload yourself because
Yeah.
we can go into conversations where it's like, I want this information, but I know this conversation can get sticky.
Mm.
So where am I at right now before I enter this conversation?
Mm.
And not just with Karley, but like I don't know, like
Just
with
anything.
mom,
Yeah.
or if I know I'm talking to my mom about this topic or about this person or whatever. But there are times I just do want to say with siblings or everyone's family is different, so I'm not going to act like I know everybody, but I definitely do recommend having those conversations. There are times where Karley and I have conversations and I leave it and I'm like, ah! Like she just
No, same
drives me
here. Same
crazy.
here.
But there are also times where it's like I don't the amount of learning that I've like and the amount of growth and the amount of just understanding like I've had a lot of and I know this is what necessarily what the conversation is about, but I've had a lot of personal growth this year. But I don't think I would have been able to take as many steps to understanding myself if I didn't understand the dynamics that we had growing up.
Mm.
There's so much information there that really no one would have been able. I could read, and I have been reading a little bit, but
Read a single book.
I know.
I
I think you said you haven't picked up a single book since Reggie's book, right? So.
I've picked up books. I've I've purchased books. I'm interested in reading Reggie's. I don't know.
She
Reggie's book
wrapped
was.
my Christmas present. That was a book.
I
Oh
don't think
wow.
that's true, but no, I've purchased books. I do like reading. I just Reggie's book I couldn't put it down, but that's besides the point. I've picked up Reggie's book multiple times actually since then. But anyway, Um, no, I, the in terms of conversation,
Yeah.
that information, like no one could teach me more than Karley would be able to just because of our experience. So basically, all I'm trying to say is, if you're interested in that type of information and you have that type of, I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to everybody, and you have that type of relationship with your siblings, with your parents, I heard a conversation between Karley and my grandparents last night that I'm like, this is cool. Like the amount of information she's receiving from them just about their history. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
seek out that information. It's so interesting and you don't know how many pieces you can pull together from
Mhm.
it. So yeah, don't be scared of those conversations. Sometimes I am timid because you don't know where it's going to go, but yeah, seek out that information. It's just so interesting, and again, things that I don't want to jump into, but if people are interested in this type of work, I know we've talked about attachment styles. That's huge when it comes to family dynamics. There are something called dysfunctional family roles, which is another huge thing, which is kind of just about birth order and which roles people tend to take on automatically just based on birth order. That's another really interesting thing. I know we just talked about birth order anyway. What did you say? Internalizing and externalizing family roles.
Processing
There's so
it.
many different tools, and yeah, there's so many just different tools and ways of when you think about family dynamics, how many things go into play. So if people are interested in these conversations, there's so many things you can look into, and we can talk about dysfunctional family roles later.
Yeah,
Be pretty
that'd be
cool
another.
conversation.
That'd be another cool conversation. Maybe I'll have my siblings on that one, right?
There we go.
Hey,
Put them
we're
in
going
the-
to talk about
Dysfunctional
dysfunctional
family roles. Get your
so-
siblings in here. That's funny. No, I know.
Karley and
Karley said she has a point. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, kind of circling back a little bit. There's Amina Tuso and Anne Friedman wrote a book. They had a podcast called Call Your Girlfriend, and they wrote a book. Can't remember the title. It's something about like best friendship. So it's not necessarily family dynamics, but it's kind of what we're talking about. You're talking about like expecting people to be just like you, and they like made a concept essentially. It's called the story of sameness, and they had a falling out, and then kind of got back together. But their falling out, they described it is that they were like telling themselves the story of sameness. Like they were so in love and so like best friends, and they were just like, we're alike in these many ways. Why are we having an issue? And that's what people do in like most relationships. They don't recognize that we're unlike in these many ways. So, like, building relationships with anyone, not just family, is kind of about highlighting your story of unsameness and like recognizing like we are alike in these many ways, and that's why I love you, but we are also unlike in these many ways, and that's what makes our relationship unique. And those are like that. It can help me hear you to understand that like you are, that I'm an externalizer and you're an internalizer, yada yada. Like, so to like highlight those unsamenesses is how you're going to like be able to advise people better. And I think that's what I've started doing recently, and like being a better listener to Courtney is being like, okay, now I've kind of realized that I like wasn't hearing you and was yelling at her for like 2 years, and I've been stopping doing that. So I was like, that strategy wasn't working. So
Yeah.
that's my spiel.
Yeah, no, definitely. We all gave our last pointers, so unless if anybody else has anything last to say, going once, going twice.
No.
So till next.
No, I'm glad.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was just gonna say I'm glad we had this conversation. I know hopefully it's useful for people around this time of year. But yeah, no, I'm grateful.
Just in general, I don't think it's just this time of the year. I don't
true,
care
that's
what
true.
holidays you're going through. I think just everything we spoke about was really everything that we can apply to our family dynamics in general. And I hope that everyone really does take something away from this conversation to be able to apply, because till next time, keep on applying those perspectives. I'm going to say it again. Perspectives, education, growth, and collaboration, y'all.